well then. All right.
I don't know whose voice that is.
I don't know, there's a stranger that said they were recording us. All right, well, let's call the regular meeting of the Village of Beach Park Village Board to order. It's June 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. This is, I hope, our last Zoom meeting, and next meeting should be in person, live, and all the good stuff that goes with that. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone. I would ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Oh, Trustee Gust, he's not there, right? Okay. Trustee Jensen,
Present.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Addison,
Here.
Trustee Siddick,
Trustee Siddick,
Boy.
here we go. Trustee Siddick, can you hear us?
I can hear
Oh,
you.
okay. There we go.
Oh,
Okay, Trustee Siddick is here. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Wells,
Here.
Attorney Ferrolo,
Here.
Mayor Hooker,
Here.
and Clerk McDonald is present.
All right. If you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible,
God,
with liberty and justice
Justice
for
for
all.
all.
All right, our next item up is public comment on agenda items. This will be a time for anyone that would wish to comment on agenda items. All we ask is that you want to unmute yourself, state your name and your case. Anyone wish to comment on agenda items tonight? Hearing none, there will be another opportunity for public comment at the end of our agenda on any and all topics. We'll move on to the consent agenda. What we have in the consent agenda tonight is the approval of the village board regular meeting minutes from May 27th, 2021. Bills presented for payment in the amount of $250,391.84. The finance report for April 2021 and the community development report for May of 2021. Is there any item that the board would have us to consider separately? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Miller.
A motion by
Second, Siddick.
Motion by trustee Miller, second by trustee Siddick. Any discussion?
I'd just like to point out that the finance report is final for the fiscal year and pending. It's not official, pending audit, as you'll see on page 1 of the finance report.
Very good. And it's favorable.
Very much so, yeah.
Yep.
And we owe that in no small measure to our staff and their frugality.
Yep, in a difficult year on top of it, so very good. Very good. All right. Any other discussion on the consent agenda? All right, would the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Jensen,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Addison,
Aye.
Trustee Siddick,
Aye.
Trustee Wells.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. On to the mayor's report. I will save some of my comments for later in the trustee reports. I'm sure we'll hear from multiple individuals here during the public safety report about the incident that happened here on the McClory bike path, and I'll save comment for that till that time. And I think that's about all I have tonight. We'll move on to trustee reports. First up, we've got our finance committee, trustee Jensen.
Apart from the comment on the finance report, my only item is the announcement of the next finance committee meeting, which I think we're going to be in person, June 23rd, 6 p.m. in the little teeny conference room upstairs.
Unless we need to ease into the in person, at which point you could still sit 6 feet apart in a larger room if you need to.
Well, as popular as those are, we might need a larger venue, regardless.
Okay, thank you very much.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
All right. Is there any report on behalf of Parks and Rec? Anything to staff level or any?
If I could, Mr. Mayor, sure. Staff's been working with the committee on the planning of the moving the park, as Trustee Gus had mentioned before. So right now we're looking at the first Sunday in August. That's August 1st. So we still have to do the final coordination, and there'll be an upcoming meeting to discuss the further details, but that's currently what we're looking at for that plan.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Planning, Building, and Zoning Committee, Trustee Wells, what have you got for us tonight?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have one item for your consideration. Like to consider a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the Village Beach Park Municipal Code, Title 15, Buildings and Construction, Chapter 15.21.090, Rental Housing Inspection and Certification Program. At the recent Building, Planning and Zoning Committee meeting on May 27, 2021, the committee discussed the potential amendment to the rental housing inspection and certification program regulation that had been proposed by staff. Staff's recommendation was to establish 2 tiers of compliance certificates, a 12-month certificate for units demonstrating poor performance during inspection, and a 36-month certificate for units that are either in compliance at the initial inspection or address moderate issues in a timely manner. At the conclusion of the discussion, the consensus of the committee was to direct staff to forward recommendations to the board. In order to amend the code as discussed is attached for the board's consideration. And again, I entertain this in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Wells.
I'll second that. Oh,
We have a
please
second
do,
by
madam.
Trustee Jensen, I believe I heard. Okay, discussion. I think it's a great concept and put in practice, I think it will be a generous, or I shouldn't say generous, a nice reward to those that are working with the village while not letting up on those that aren't. So I think it's great direction that we're going here. Any other discussion?
Like the mayor just said, this is really a win-win for all parties involved.
Yeah.
The village officials and the residents get better looking businesses, and everybody wins when that happens.
Yep. Okay. All right. Then I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Aye.
Trustee Addison,
Aye.
Trustee Siddick,
Aye.
Trustee Wells,
Aye.
Trustee Jensen.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries.
And that concludes my report, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving on to Public Relations and Intergovernmental Agreements Committee. Trustee Miller, what have you got for us tonight?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have an ordinance for the board's consideration. This is asking us to adopt an ordinance that will amend an intergovernmental agreement establishing Solid Waste Agency of Lake County, Illinois. This is actually an amendment to that agreement. In April of 2021, the SWALCO board approved sending the attached amendment to the agreement to all of its 44 members for action. And in order to amend their own agreement, each the agency must approve the ordinance, and that includes Beach Park. So what this ordinance does is basically ensure that the SWALCO meetings will have sufficient members. It includes the option of villages or, well, all municipalities who are members can potentially select past presidents or past mayors as their SWALCO representatives. And SWALCO, I think wisely, is trying to ensure that they always have enough members to have a quorum and conduct their business. So for our piece, this is simple. You know, we're as cooperative members of SWALCO. It looks like a good idea. This is in conjunction with our village priorities of partnering with other entities such as stormwater management, the Lake County Forest Preserve District. SWALCO falls right in line with them. No impact to our budget, of course. And so with that, I would make a motion to approve this ordinance.
All right, we have a motion by trustee Miller. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Otterson. Discussion? This is fairly benign. It's a very real issue with a lot of boards that members are either have other commitments, sometimes conflicting meetings, et cetera. So the ability to have a larger pool as directors and or alternates does certainly make a lot of sense. So I would ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Otterson,
Aye.
trustee Siddick,
Aye.
trustee Wells,
Aye.
trustee Jensen.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And then just like to add in a closing, falling in line with what the mayor mentioned previously and the incident that happened along the McClory Path earlier this week. I happened to have just a providential conversation today with a Lake County Forest Preserve deputy who was driving his car through the Lions Woods Path and stopped and very nicely explained why, you know, they're adding more presence in Lions Woods in a visible sense. He said there was another car sitting in the parking lot that we would see when we got over to the parking lot, and talking about the tremendous importance of people just being aware when they're on paths. And especially now, this time of year when the vegetation is in full bloom, full growth, it's so easy for someone who has nefarious intent to just hide in the brush. And everybody, you know, just be aware. He said, always walk with a buddy or walk with a dog at the very least. So helpful advice. And, you know, I'm sure that especially when Beach Park gets publicity like this, you know, it's not the kind that we relish, but, you know, it's important for people's safety that they become aware no matter what the circumstances, and be careful. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. All right, moving on to Public Safety Committee. Trustee Siddick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And of course, I'm going to echo what Trustee Miller just said. And, you know, of course, I certainly want to talk to, and I hope the sheriff's office is with us this evening. Of course, the recent incident that just happened out there on the McClory bike path. Of course, it's very disturbing. No one wants that to happen, but again, people need to be aware of their surroundings. And do we have an update on that?
Lieutenant Cavalli is on the line, so if you want to go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Board. Yeah, certainly what all of the trustees and the mayor have said here tonight, all very relevant. This is not the type of situation that we want in Beach Park or anywhere in the county. Certainly a tragic situation that this young lady has experienced, and she'll unfortunately have to deal with the trauma for years to come, most likely the rest of her life. So, you know, we had a very large scale presence out there the evening of the incident on the 7th, set up a large perimeter immediately of being notified of this situation. We had to utilize a canine from the Lake Forest Police Department. Unfortunately, we did not have a canine on shift that day, but luckily with Lake Forest being just a few miles away, they were up here very quickly. The canine tracked to an area that we believe the individual got into a car. That's consistent with some other information that we've learned without going into too great of detail. And if, believe me, if I could share all of the information I have, I certainly would. It's just, it's important. There are certain portions of this that we keep tight under wraps because if and when we do apprehend an offender, that's going to be important that we haven't released certain details. But this is certainly a full court press on our end. Our investigations bureau, you've got the best detectives that are investigating this. There are some leads that have come in that they are working on. I don't want to give false senses of hope, but we're moving in the right direction versus the wrong direction. Anytime there is information that's flowing and coming in and leads that can be followed up on, that's a good thing for us. When those leads start to dry up, then it starts to slow down. So certainly there's plenty of information that our detectives are working on. I believe everybody on the board does have the description of the offender. In situations like this, it's extremely important that we get some assistance from the community, especially with some of the uniqueness of the description of this individual and what he had in his hair. I mean, it's not every day you see men with pins, silver, metallic pins in their hair. So we're moving forward. We're working on it. I did, in anticipation, obviously everybody is going to be thinking, what happens on this bike path? Is this safe? Some of the tips, Trustee Miller, that you had mentioned from the Forest Preserve, those are terrific tips. Walking in pairs or groups, we always recommend that. Although everybody has the right and should have the ability to go on a walk by themselves too. They shouldn't be restricted in the sense of not being able to take a public walking path unless they're with a buddy or a group. But certainly we recommend that, and that's the safest way, because traveling in pairs or groups of people tends to diminish the ability of an offender to attack or prey on somebody. As far as historically, I did some pretty significant research over the past 2 years on the trail through Beach Park. Very minor. We've responded to a few calls, a few mini bike complaints, a fireworks complaint that somebody reported as shots, a couple suspicious people reports, but nothing that's ultra significant. And all in all, through the Beach Park area, it's been low key. There's obviously been some issues that have happened in Lions Woods over the years at the fort, and maybe everybody on the call doesn't know that Lions Woods does fall under the jurisdiction of the Forest Preserve Police. They're their own policing entity with their own investigative capabilities. So they run their own investigations unless they reach out for different resources from our office or other local municipalities. Certainly we share information very closely with the Forest Preserve, and our municipal partners around the Beach Park area would be Zion and Waukegan. Very commonly, we're in constant communication. We have great relationships with them. So, at the end of the day, it's a public bike path. We haven't seen major issues on that bike path. What happened this week certainly does not fit the norm for the bike path. But nonetheless, as everybody knows, an extremely serious situation, and we certainly want to hold the offender accountable.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very, very much. And, of course, my heart does go out to the victim and the family. But just out of curiosity, I know that bike path does cover quite a few jurisdictions. How does policing, who is supposed to police that area of the bike path? Is it, I know you'd mentioned that, the Forest Preserve has their own Forest Preserve police that we know. But who really is supposed to just kind of monitor the bike path for those reasons? Do we know?
That's a great question. And you're absolutely right. The bike path extends from Wisconsin down into Cook County. It's very long, and it is up to whatever municipality's jurisdiction is in that section of bike path. So Beach Park, believe it or not, doesn't have a huge section of the path. It's relatively small. Waukegan has much more. But if there is an incident or a crime that occurs on the bike path, it would fall to the jurisdictional boundary of whoever has that policing authority to investigate. So obviously the sheriff's office with Beach Park, Waukegan with Waukegan, North Chicago with North Chicago. There's parts that I do believe intertwine with the Forest Preserve that they would respond to. So multiple jurisdictions, just as if somebody were driving north on Lewis Avenue. Once they leave Waukegan and enter Beach Park, it becomes our responsibility. Once they leave Beach Park and go into Zion, Zion would take over, and it falls within those same parameters with the bike path.
Okay, yeah, that's wonderful information, because I know our residents would want to know that. And we certainly appreciate the great job that the sheriff's office is doing for us.
Thanks,
And
Trustee
it's
Sitter.
very unfortunate that this was, this is not the norm for the bike path. It was just a horrible, horrible incident that happened. Terrible incident. And again, my heart goes out to the family and the victim. So hopefully you'll have somebody in custody very, very soon.
That is our goal.
Yep. And just two other questions on a couple other press releases. One from the Lions Woods that happened a while ago, and the other regarding the Dollar General.
I'm all ears.
Okay. Well, the press release that was just recently done, you apparently you have somebody was finally indicted on the charges from the doing the armed robbery at our Dollar General, which is great news. So thank God somebody's in custody and facing charges on that.
Yes. So Darnell Hill, who is actually also charged in the double homicide that occurred on Wadsworth Road, was indicted on the armed robbery at the Dollar General that happened on Christmas Eve. Certainly that was a very scary incident for those that were involved. We allege that Mr. Hill went into the Dollar General armed with a firearm, pointed that at a patron, pointed that at the clerk, demanded money from both. He received money from both and fled on foot. Our detectives and evidence technicians responded to that as we would any serious crime like an armed robbery. And they processed the scene in areas that Mr. Hill made contact with or touched. They were able to establish a DNA profile from some areas that were touched. And as more information came in, we worked very closely with Waukegan, Gurnee, and Kenosha police on that, as they all had armed robberies with very similar MOs. We were able to establish enough probable cause to indicate that Mr. Hill was involved in the armed robbery at the Dollar General. With that, a search warrant was prepared and a Lake County judge authorized our detectives to take Mr. Hill's DNA. And it was a confirmed match between the known standard and the items that were collected by our evidence technicians. So that we're glad that he's held accountable. Obviously, he's held on much more serious charges, but nonetheless, there has to be accountability for any serious crime against a person.
Right. Yep. Okay. Well, yep. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Great job,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks,
Is there
Trustee
any
Sitter.
other questions?
Actually, I have a question for the lieutenant before we lose him here, if you don't mind. Back to what you were talking about the multiple jurisdictions along the McClory path. If like, for example, a walker or a bicycle rider is out on the path and you observe something happening, what do you suggest? Is it better to try to figure out where you're at or just call 911?
Call 911. That is always the best way to handle it, especially with cell phones today. 911 dispatchers can almost immediately triangulate and pinpoint where you're calling from. And if it's anywhere close to a jurisdictional boundary, you're going to have officers and deputies responding from the sheriff's office and that other local agency. We're never going to say, yeah, you know what, this looks like it happens to be in Waukegan, so we're not going to respond. If it's a crime in progress or something that has any significance at all, deputies would be responding on behalf of Beach Park.
Okay, thank you. And my only other question is, there's more and more of these electric bicycles on the streets now. are those allowed to be on a bike path, a pedestrian bike path?
You know, I'd have to do a little research into that. Generally speaking, no, motorized vehicles are not allowed on the public roadway or generally sidewalks or generally bike paths. And you are right, there are a lot more of those today than there were even a couple of years ago. But generally speaking, no, I'll have to 100% confirm that the county ordinance would prohibit it on the bike path we're speaking of.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a great point, Trustee Miller, because the more access people have to that, the more people. I've always wondered why it wasn't open up to equestrian use on top of that. But again, people, always have to remember, a lot of people are using cell phones with earpods, not Walkmans. I don't want to date myself, but people need to be aware of their surroundings. Just people have to be careful. So, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions?
I do,
We
Linda,
have
thank
one.
you.
I asked this. I see more and more of these vehicles that are, the windows are completely shaded. And I don't mean the back windows and the rear window, but I mean the driver's window and the passenger window. So is that legal?
Well, not completely shaded. However, Illinois did change the law probably about 5-6 years ago, where they do allow the driver's side front and driver's side passenger to be tinted to a certain percentage. Our deputies, some of our deputies, not every single one of them, are equipped with a device that can read the percentage of tint and certainly warn an individual they have stopped or cite them if that's applicable. But they can't be, I want to say off the top of my head, it's been a while since I've read the traffic code, but I want to say they can't be darker than 35% all the way around. So if they're darker than that technically is a violation of the law.
Okay, thanks. I promise that's it.
Oh, okay.
No worries.
Go ahead,
All
trustee
right.
Jensen.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to the bike path. As I expect that our residents are gonna expect from us an increased, at least for some time, increased surveillance on the bike path. Does the sheriff's office offer off-road patrol capabilities for our section of that bike path?
Yeah, so we do have off-road capabilities. I'll be honest, I mean, with the distance that Beach Park has on your bike path, I don't know that an off-road vehicle is even needed. We can get a squad car right up onto the bike path and drive down, and that's just as that suffices just as well as one of our UTVs. Our deputies are very aware. The Beach Park cars, as well as our district cars that are assigned, they cover the broader area, but including Beach Park, very aware of what happened. They are conducting extra patrols, so the community knows that we're out there. It's being taken very seriously, and obviously the safety of the community is first and foremost always. So they're out there.
You don't have bike patrol officers then?
We do have. We do. We do have officers that are assigned to bicycles, and those are equipped to their squad. So they have a bike rack and they can deploy the bicycle if needed.
Well, and we do have provision for extra patrols in our agreement with your office. And I would think that might be something we might want to consider again for this next couple months or this summer, perhaps. If that could be arranged. I think that there's going to be an expectation among the population, just as there was with the shooting at Founders Park recently, that we intensify our surveillance. And I like the idea of a bike over a marked squad car driving down there. Obviously, if I'm lurking in the shrubbery, I'm less likely to come out if there's a marked squad driving down the trail. Okay, and I had a couple other comments that aren't directly for the lieutenant, if I may, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
In the question of following the model of the neighborhood watch, I'm wondering if we could enlist the neighbors along the bike path to, kind of heighten their monitoring of that area for us and and make it a linear neighborhood perhaps. Also, could we enlist bicycle clubs, that sort of thing, to be eyes and ears for the police officers and as well as the village? Maybe even provide our village employees, if I'd be willing, believe it or not, as finance chair, I'd be willing to come up with some additional money for overtime if we would want to do that. We have off-road capabilities. I know the village does bicycles, whatever we could do. Signage. Unfortunately, yeah, as the lieutenant said, we all ought to be able to walk on that whenever we want to, day, night. The reality of today is that's not necessarily the case. So I'd like to look into maybe signage, at least at the entrances in the village. And last, I don't know, I haven't paid much attention quite recently to Crime Stoppers. I don't know if that's still functional. And again, from the finance department, the finance perspective, committee perspective, I would certainly be willing to look into offering to participate in whatever reward might be available through the Crime Stoppers on the behalf of the village to assist in apprehension of this monster. So that's my speech. Thank you.
Okay. Just to add to Lieutenant's description of the bike path in the village. It is a very small section. It starts at York House Road and travels north to about 2 blocks south of Beach Road. And so as far as what falls within our jurisdiction, we certainly join it through the subdivision east of Tuis Farm, but that does fall within Waukegan's boundaries there, as Tuis Farm was developed before the village. That right of way does fall within Waukegan's boundaries. So we have such a small section. It's part, I think, maybe the village working in concert with Zion and Waukegan on some of these solutions, some of these directions might bear some fruit as well. Their resources might be more in tune, whether they be bicycle patrols or whether they be rangers or whatever it might be on off-road vehicles, that might be something else that we might be able to help and fund in order to extend coverage that might already be present north or south to assist. The bike trail, is largely secluded, and although there are neighboring homes, and thank God there's a neighbor that was home and heard screams and scared this guy off, or who knows what might have come next. But the reality is we live in a broken world. We live in a world where people do bad things, and we all need to do our due diligence as well to protect ourselves. And I like the admonitions for, buddying up and that, but sometimes that's not realistic either. And we do have the right, and we do have the expectation to be safe in a public way, whether it's a bike path or a road or wherever it might be. That being said, bad people come from long distances away sometimes to do bad things, and they don't necessarily always live in the neighborhood that they're doing them in. So it's tricky business at best. I think all of the things that were discussed tonight are excellent suggestions. Awareness campaigns, possibly working with the schools to raise awareness for, personal safety. All of the above are great ideas. And I think that this is something we will have to continue to explore. Certainly additional patrols are potentially possible, but that, again, I don't even know if it's a mile long, that stretch of the road. So it's limited place for our direct impact, but we might certainly be able to enhance that working with our neighbors. So just some thoughts.
And if I may, Mayor and Board, one thing to keep in mind is tragic and alarming of a situation this was. this is not a crime-ridden section of the path. Certainly, we want to give the sense to the community that they are safe. They're safe to utilize it. We're there for them. But we aren't, knock on wood, dealing with a serial type incident or a multiple crimes that have compiled in the short term or the long term. So, I mean, those are positives, looking at the grim situation that happened this week. And as far as Crime Stoppers goes, yes, that is very much still an organization in full force. Shortly here in about 40 minutes, we're going to be putting some additional information out about the incident. I don't want to say too much in this forum just yet, but Crime Stoppers will be, their information will be included in that updated release with their telephone number and also a website people can go to submit tips if they prefer to communicate online versus making a telephone call.
And Mayor, if I may suggest that we link to that on our website, and also
Yep.
Perhaps the lieutenant has some additional tips that we could also post for pedestrians and bicyclists on that website.
Yep. All
Mhm.
good. All good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Siddiq, was there anything else in your report tonight?
Okay, unless anybody has any other additional comments, concerns, that would conclude my report. Thank you.
I do notice that we have the fire chief online. Is there anything that you'd like to share tonight?
Ask about it, the fire chief. I'm sorry, forgive me.
No worries, a lot going on. Again, yeah, it's a little unnerving for us because we were just out there doing a bike path cleanup weekend before that. And just to know we were all out there and seeing how many people actually go out there and to know that this could happen out there is just kind of unsettling for us also.
Yep.
Just something we're trying to do here. We're working with the IDNR at the state park to try to get signs up with summer season coming up. It's always been a problem with no lifeguards out there about drownings and everything and just water safety. So we're trying to work with them to get signs put up so that if there ever is an incident, someone can just notify what sign they're by when they call 911. So help us get out there a little bit faster to know where they're at, because the majority of the times they just say they're on the beach. They have no idea where they're at.
Right.
So that delays our response getting out there.
Mhm.
Again, that's something that's possible for the bike path also. If they could just, somehow we could put up signs, just even something simple as a number sign.
Yep.
We could start at York House with a number 1 and all the way up to 33rd with whatever number we go up to, just, we can
Well, you
map
know,
it out.
You make an excellent point, whether it's the beach or the bike path. If a
Mhm.
numbering system like a mile marker system was established along the entire bike path through the entire county, that would certainly, and I don't know how frequent you'd be able to put them up, but that might be a great wayfinder for rescue or law enforcement. So that's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's something I'm kind of working on here right now, but I think that would absolutely benefit both us and the police department, the sheriff's department as well. Make it a little bit easier to get to them, because you know, as I said before, a lot of times just I'm at the beach or I'm on the path. Well, you got to start somewhere, and if they, like I said, saw a sign or something, that would absolutely help us and cut down time for both us and sheriff's department.
Good. I like
But
it.
again, just thank you to the sheriff's department. I know you guys are fantastic doing it with your job, and I'm sure you guys will catch that sick individual sooner rather than later.
Good. Did I see you have a recruitment campaign going on?
Us, we're trying to hire, we're down some more people again, so we are trying to hire some more people again. So we're down another full-time member.
Oh, boy.
Hopefully we're in the process. We're just waiting on some information back. So we should be at our full-time staff back up full within, by July, I'm assuming. Then we just got to fill in some of our part-time people, then we should be good, back up to full staff again.
Good. Good. All right. Anything the
Great.
village can do to help get the word out about that?
Absolutely, I will definitely let you know.
All right. If you if you want to put a little brief description together, we're happy to include that on our village website as well.
Absolutely. We'll do that, sir.
Good.
Yep.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you. Okay,
welcome.
anything else? Any comments, questions?
Well, Linda, you did kind of briefly allude to the Lions Woods situation. I read that there was an arrest made today. I don't know if Lieutenant Cavelli has any information about that, seeing that it's the Forest Preserve Police, but I thought that was good news.
Yep.
That, they reported that was almost a year ago that took place and an arrest has been made.
Yes, that is great news. The arrest was made actually several months ago. The individual arrested was linked to Lions Woods, if I'm not mistaken, by an incident that Waukegan police responded to that was in progress, and they were able to make the connection between the two cases and charge that individual with some serious criminal charges. It's still pending in court. He's being held at the Lake County Jail at this time. So, of course, when this incident happens this week here in Beach Park, immediately we think back and do some research and find out, is that still an open investigation or not? And sure enough, it's closed. We know that he at least was not involved in this incident. So nonetheless, great that person is off the street and no more threat to society at this point.
Thank
Yep.
God.
And that's a reminder too, that the immediacy of the crime, the urgency of the response to the crime from the public, the reality is sometimes it's solved right away, but most of the time it's a lot of police work. It's a lot of investigation. Sometimes it's pure luck, but months go by. And then it's great to hear the end of the story, if I could say it that way, or as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. When we actually have an arrest, when we actually have a perpetrator in custody versus the specter of somebody out there waiting to strike again. So we may not have an answer to this bike trail incident immediately, but I have confidence that if there's going to be a solution, it'll come. And I'm excited to hear what comes next on this one. So, all right. Was there anything else, Linda?
Yep, and a conviction on these people, of course.
Yep.
And, I certainly hope that, there's no defund the police movement in our area, because our sheriff's office does a wonderful job. And we're glad to have them on board, and I really appreciate their hard work.
Mayor, before we move on, would
Sure.
it be possible to ask staff to report back to us at the next meeting on options that as we discussed here tonight, that we as village can implement to enhance security on our little section of this bike path?
Yeah, I think that we can certainly do that. That's no problem.
We were going to buy some electric bikes, but Linda put an end to that tonight by calling them out as illegals.
Just pretend you're pedaling, Mark. Pretend you're pedaling, Mark.
That was Regina, I think. I could be wrong. Was
Yeah,
Oh,
I said equestrian.
Oh, a question. Okay.
She wants
you're
the
right.
electric horses.
We were going to buy a horse, but we,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. All right. Well then, moving on to Public Works, Trustee
Okay,
Addison,
Becky.
what have you got for us tonight?
Thank you.
I have nothing on the agenda, no report other than the Public Works Department continues to do a great job and keeping things handled. We had a good meeting Tuesday night, and they're busy.
Yep.
Which is good, because when you're not busy, that means you don't need anybody, and then they all go away. So being busy is a good problem. So that's my report.
Lots of fresh pavement down. Lots of
Yeah,
restoration work being done and finished.
record time.
Yep.
That was great. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. I have no report for the TIF committee tonight. Do we have any additional staff reports? Thank you. We have no old or new business unless someone has some new business for the good of the group.
I have one little item, Mayor, if I might.
Okay.
In response to some social media gripes about car sales on residential property, used car sales. I communicated with Andrew, and one thing that I'd like to consider, I've thought about this for some time actually. We have these things pop up all over the community from time to time. People have an old car that is not worth trading in. They want to try and sell, get a couple of bucks for it. And our staff is chasing them around because we have rules about what, where, and when and how you can do that. And I was wondering what the logistics would be of offering at nominal cost with appropriate waivers of liability and so forth, a spot where they could park it and put a sign in the window at the village-owned property at 29th and Green Bay or somewhere where they could display it without violating village ordinance, where it would be seen by the public, and they could, as a source to our community, and avoiding the need for us to enforce the regulations on these ones and twos that happen around the community. Certainly, we would want to limit the time if we did such a thing, so that we didn't become a de facto used car lot. Anyhow, that's a suggestion that I'd kind of like a little bit of thought given to that by staff.
All right,
I have a question about that.
go ahead.
Didn't we have, we did allow for folks to sell their cars on the property as long as it was their own property and it wasn't somebody else that was bringing in a car to sell on someone else's. Is that how I understood it back in the
I
day,
think
or
it has to
remember?
be on the pavement if it's for sale.
There
That's-
is a permit available, because I've done that before. You apply for a permit, you don't even apply, you come in and get it. There's no cost involved. But there's a
Mhm.
permit that you display in the window next to the for sale sign saying, I'm allowed to do this for the time
Right.
duration or whatever. So
Yep.
there is a
Okay.
procedure in place that doesn't cost them anything.
Well, with all the traffic on
Right.
Paxton Drive, I imagine that's sold right away, Mark.
Actually, it did.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do recall something about that, but at the time when we were dealing with this, I just remember it was something about, you just didn't want people bringing cars from their personal properties to a main road and parking them on somebody else's property to try and sell.
Yep.
And
you're correct.
yeah, I agree, Linda. That is one of the considerations is if you live on a main road, you can do that and probably sell it relatively easily by yourself. But if you live on a little dead end street, many of which we have in Beach Park, your exposure is
Mhm.
pretty slim.
Yep.
Whereas
Mhm.
that corners would be excellent for that.
Or they could put it on Facebook.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
fair
Well,
enough.
next up, we have citizens wishing to address the board. This would be for any and all topics. All we ask again is that you would unmute yourself, give us your name, be recognized, and state your case. Does anyone
Yes.
wish to address the board?
Bob Johnson?
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to speak a little bit about the bike path that travels all the way up to Kenosha. My wife and children and I used to ride that all the way to Kenosha and back and forth. I only had one incident when I was riding myself one day, was up by Kenosha, close to 33rd, or by Zion, close to 33rd, where three teenagers, quite big young teenagers, blocked the path, wouldn't let me through. They were trying to block the path because the minute they tried to block the path, I reached down into my basket and got my mace out. When they seen the can of mace, they discouraged them and they ran off. Well, the other problem is, on that bike path between York House and Beach Road, the homes over there, their back doors abut to the bike path. There's been 3 burglaries over the years that I know of. So, you know, it's not always a clear-cut thing that there isn't problems there. But as I recall, when McClory Bike Path was put into effect and the county took that right away and built a bike path, there was, by Lake County, not the police, not the sheriff's department, but Lake County itself had a vehicle that was dedicated. It was a four-wheel drive vehicle and well marked as a police vehicle, and it used to travel all the way through Lake County on that bike path. And the whole purpose of it is to establish that to keep the motorized vehicles off, one thing, but the other thing is to make people aware that there is police activity out there. So I don't know whatever happened to that. They probably just thought, well, there wasn't enough work for them or something. I don't know, but I recall that distinctly, that they worked that for a few years when the bike path was first established. And the other thing I'd like to speak about, the fact that you didn't mention anything about Bowen Park and the shooting over there at 2:30 in the morning with 50 and 70 people out there, that nobody wants to come forward with any indication of what went on to the Waukegan police. And the fact of the matter is, I at one time was responsible as a Waukegan policeman with a group of 12 other policemen. We had the part-time police that worked for the city of Waukegan, but we were paid by the park district in Waukegan to travel the parks in the evenings and close the parks by chaining the parks up at 9 o'clock every night and go through the park first with the loudspeaker and tell people the park is closing. And that worked out great because nobody could drive their vehicles in there after 9 o'clock at night. And I noticed that the Forest Preserve, they have gates actually, and they're from dawn to sunset, and even our beach park has a ordinance that covers the closing time. But it might be a good indication that it might be time to invest a little money on gates at the entrances and exits at the park, that somebody could just go over there and lock it up at dusk, because it's supposed to be closed at dusk.
Great
So
minds
I
think
know
alike.
So I know the sheriff's department spends some time over there and always checking on it, even in the evening hours. But
Yep.
I think that would be a good move, to be able to put some gates up there that you could open and close and lock.
At least
when
for
necessary.
Founders Park, Bob, at least for Founders Park, that's in the works as we speak. So that's additional.
Well, that's great.
surveillance. Yep.
That's
So-
great, because you don't need no problems. Nobody needs to be in them parks. Them parks were dedicated, for families and also for children, and not for the druggers and
Yep.
gangbangers and so on. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public wish to address the board? Okay, hearing none. We have no cause to. Did I hear someone?
No, I'm
Oh.
fighting this computer.
Mr.
I've got a
O'Reilly.
couple things, and anywhere near close to the importance of the items that were discussed tonight at this meeting. Give the mayor and the village credit for the amount of time that's spent discussing that issue, but I have a very strong interest in the developments on Sheridan Road, and I noticed we have a new electric company that's opened up in the Sunlight Glass Company. And that's about, I think, the second or third business that's tried to go in there. And I've always felt that the lot next to that on the north side blocks any view of that property. And you're just about at the laundromat before you realize that you went by that, even with the signage that's there. And I think it'd be a good idea if we could open that up, clean it up a little bit, or open it up, try to get some visible means there to enhance that property. It's just a thought. I think it's something that I've talked about to a couple, and nothing's ever happened.
We have encouraged many different people that were looking at the, as you would say, the old Sunlight Glass or Cadence Cabinetry building, to acquire the adjacent land. You know, obviously it's still private property, belongs to someone else outside of the right of way that might be there. But, and we've certainly encouraged people to, you know, that had the chance of expanding the business. In fact, Cadence at one point did look at putting an addition on the building to try to accommodate their growth. They ultimately ended up moving to 2 facilities actually, because they grew so fast. They outgrew their building there. It's not that they failed and went out of business. As, you know, Sunlight Glass, obviously, that business did close. So yeah, certainly I agree with you. And there might be a way to work with the neighboring property owner to get some of that cleared as well.
Yeah. Second, the McDonald's restaurant. The homeless situation there seems to have improved, but there's a lot of panhandling going on in the parking lot. I've spoken with your managers about that, and they just don't have time to watch it, and it's very disruptive. I pulled in there the other day, and you've got laying on the table there, you've got the bedding equipment and an old suitcase, and some guy there that's, you know, it's just downgrading to the community to see that type of situation exist, and it's an everyday occurrence there. So it's something that I would think maybe a letter to the owner might be from the village, and see if we get maybe a little pressure put on the store managers, store personnel to do a better job of watching that. And I know it's a very small issue, but it's the impression that people see when they drive by there.
Yep.
I don't think that's the impression we would like to have in the Village of Beach Park.
I might ask Lieutenant just to clarify, on private property, the panhandling would have to, the owner would have to swear a complaint out against the panhandler for trespass or something along those lines.
Yes.
And my understanding is on public property, that becomes a First Amendment issue or whatever, where panhandlers can't be prohibited. They can certainly be warned. I know Waukegan actually put signs up on light street poles above the panhandlers saying, don't give money to panhandlers, but you know, there they are, they're still there.
Yeah, the courts have ruled that's a First Amendment right to interact with individuals and solicit money. So we're very, very limited in how we address those situations. Certainly a lot of times there's a mental health component, and we recognize that, and we have services that we certainly offer, try to provide, but unless an individual poses an immediate threat to themselves or somebody else, it's really based on consent and voluntary element.
Okay. So, yeah.
Oh, boy.
David, you make a good point, and maybe reaching out to whether you say owner or management there to at least monitor and take some action as they have the ability to kind of contrary to the village even, but certainly we can take that into consideration.
Thank you, John and Board. That's all I've got.
All right, sir. Well, good to hear you. I can't see you, but maybe we'll get to see you here coming up at a board meeting.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. Any other public wishing to address the board? All right. We have no cause tonight for an executive session. Do we have a motion to?
Mayor,
Ah,
it would be my honor to offer a motion to adjourn.
we have a motion to adjourn by trustee Jensen. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by trustee Addison. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Jensen,
Aye.
trustee Miller,
Aye.
trustee Addison,
Aye.
trustee Siddick,
Aye.
trustee Wells.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you all. And we'll see you in person